Welcome to Effective Cannabis Conversations, the show where knowledge meets curiosity and stigma takes a back seat. I'm Debbie Wimberly, your advocate for all things empowering, educating, and elevating in the world for better health.
And I'm Angel, here to spark transformation, ditch the myths, and help you embrace clarity and confidence with a little help from nature's wisdom.
Together, we're here to bring you real talk, real stories, and meaningful guidance. Whether you're a medical professional, an advocate, or just someone looking to improve your quality of life.
Find your cozy corner, get comfy. Let us introduce you to the endocannabinoid system and dive into the conversations that matter.
Before we dive in, just a quick reminder. The information we're sharing today is for health awareness only. It is not medical advice or a substitute for consulting your doctor. It is here to help you learn, ask the right questions, and make informed decisions about your health and your care. Hello, and welcome to another Effective Cannabis Conversation. We are very honored today to be able to be sitting down with Tricia and Connor Sheffield today. From Angel and I are very delighted that we will get to have this conversation and learn a little bit more about their history and why they came to understand the importance of medical cannabis. So I'm Debbie Wimberly, and we'll take a few moments and go around and just let everybody introduce themselves. So we'll start with Tricia.
Hi, I'm Connor's mom, and I got into medical cannabis advocacy just for Connor, really. Wasn't planning on it, didn't really know much about medical cannabis, but I just was doing it for Connor so he could, have access to his medical cannabis where he needed it. And he could probably tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm Connor Sheffield. I'm the executive director of the Connor Sheffield Foundation. I'm also a race car driver. I drive 600cc microsprints. Just because of being at college, it's kind of slowed down a little bit, but it's still a big part of me and what I do. And as I just mentioned, I'm a college student. So for a little while, I've kind of been very focused studying. I'm a history major at University of Maryland. I first got involved with medical cannabis because I have a long history of being in and out of hospitals. From a very young age, I've struggled with a condition called gastrointestinal dysmotility, which basically just, to make it a very long story short, my pretty much entire gastrointestinal system from my throat to the bottom of it just doesn't really work. Always required medications. I used to have a feeding tube, which I still have a scar from. I've been fed through my veins, all kinds of issues where I wasn't able to eat. I wasn't able to digest my food, issues with bowel movements. List goes on and on and on. And as I said, I spent a very large portion of my life in and out of hospitals. And unfortunately, no pharmaceutical medications that the doctors were giving me had any real long-term effect or any positive long-term effect. So my parents were familiar with some people in the medical cannabis industry as it was kind of just beginning here in Maryland back in 2018. And around that time was when my condition was the most severe. I was given a particular amount of time to be able to get my weight and condition better. I was struggling. I was 13, 14 years old. I was 80 pounds. I was like a little kid. You would not have believed that I was 13 or 14 years old, the way that I looked. It just didn't seem like I really had a lot of time left. So it was medical cannabis was the only option for me. It wasn't really something that was presented as an option at first. And because of that, I really want to be able to share my story, and I really want to be able to advocate for this medication that it saved my life. I see what it's done for me. I see what it's done for people around me. And so just for the fact that this little plant gave me a life that I otherwise never would have been able to have, that's how I got into advocacy, and that's why I'm here today.
I'm Angel Johansson.
All right, thank you. So Connor, your story is amazing, and hearing it, and then we always hear how hard for anybody that is a parent with a child to have access to cannabis. And so I'd like to dive in a little bit between you and your mom, discussing what are some of the difficulties that you had to overcome just with the stigma and trying to find treatment and utilizing cannabis. So if you want to dive into that first, that's great, Connor.
So I think when it comes to the stigma around it, for me, a major problem was like access. And when I first started my journey, I began to pretty much immediately like see the results of cannabis. It took a couple months for me to like really get to like a stable condition, but it was clear that it was helping me. So around that time, I'm gonna say like it was early 2018, maybe end of 20. It was sometime in 2018 when I was ready to start going back to school, and my doctors had agreed. I was fine to start going back to school. At the time, I was receiving home and hospice care, so they would send a teacher to the house, and I would receive a couple hours of teaching a week, which was really not enough. I really wanted to get back to the classroom. Like I've always loved being in the classroom and engaging with teachers and just learning new things. So that's kind of another thing that's always been a part of me. And I really was missing that for a large part of my life. And when I was ready to get back to the classroom, unfortunately, they informed me that I would not be able to use my medical cannabis like on site at the public school that I was in. So for a while, the answer was that they put like an iPad on a robot, and I could use it from home. So I'd FaceTime into the robot from home, and I would wheel it around the school to go to my classes. And obviously that just didn't work. So then I tried to minimize my usage, like the amount that I was like how I was using it, when I was using it. And that was tough because I was going through a lot of pain. I was going through a lot of nausea. I just could not operate in my day. And then it got to the point where, okay, so I need to have this medication through my day when I'm going to school. My parents are now coming to the school, signing me out of class, taking me off school property. I'm being administered the medication, and then I've got to go back in. It's taking out all this time from my actual education. Eventually it just really became too much. And I don't know fully how. Maybe my mother can talk more on this part of it. But my parents did find somebody in the Maryland state legislation who had heard my story and was interested in giving us some help. It's up to her if she wants to talk about that at all when we go around her. But after we talked to some people in the Maryland state legislature, it became very clear like this was a bigger problem than just me. Like minor medical cannabis patients who needed access to their medication, like in schools, it was a much bigger problem than just me. There were at the time, I think 200 or 300,000 medical cannabis patients in the state of Maryland, and several thousand of them were minors who were attending public schools. So this was it was a major problem, and a lot of them students with epilepsy, kids like me with gastrointestinal issues. List goes on and on. So something had to be done, and we talked to delegates, state senators, and we got a pretty good amount of support around a bill that we ended up getting passed that same year in 2020.
That's incredible that you could do that in a year. So
it was insane. It was incredible. We really didn't think that we would get it done that quick.
Yeah, that's great. So Tricia, would you like to talk a little bit about how you were contacted by a representative or a senator and they wanted to know about this and help you?
Sure. So I just remember when, Connor wasn't allowed to take his medicine to school, and I didn't really understand the legislative process. I didn't even know what a delegate was. Okay. So we just started calling like everybody. I think we called like a local representative, but it wasn't a delegate. And and nobody could help us. Like everybody we called, they were like, "Oh, we can't help you. We can't help you." So my husband and I were at dinner one night right down the street at the restaurant, and we were just kind of like, I was actually like just kind of like almost crying to my husband, like, what are we gonna do? I can't believe, what is Connor gonna do? Like, we were literally like, he's well enough to go to school, but he can't take his medicine. So like we're stuck because we were kind of in like a catch-22. He can't miss school, because we would get arrested for truancy. But he was well enough to go, but only because he needed to take his medicine. So like we literally were like, hey, do we stop take his medicine? I mean, we told the doctor, we even said to the doctor, okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to stop taking the medicine. And she's like, no, 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 don't stop, keep going. And then we're like, well, we need your help. We need somebody to help us because we can't go to school. So, I'm crying to my husband about this in the restaurant, and it happened to be sitting like right next to, at that time was a legislator. She was a delegate, and she just was like, excuse me, I'm sorry, I was like overhearing your conversation. I think I could help you. And I was like, you can't help me. And she's like, no, I can. And I'm like, I don't think, I don't know. And I'm like literally in tears just because I'm just so frustrated we've been through so much with Connor already. And it's like, we're finally getting him to a healthier state. And now we can't even get him to school. She called me, and it went from there. We got a bunch of other, we've got like, I think almost every single delegate to sign on to a bill that was written, and pretty much everybody voted yes for it. And that was kind of like how it started, but it was just a conversation. It was an accidental conversation that somebody overheard, and everybody in the state of Maryland wanted to help Connor. They really did. And it was good. It was good to see, because Maryland does care about their kids,
That's absolutely beautiful. And I wish that we could get all states to be that way for the children that are in this place right now. We have a lot of minors throughout the whole US and around the world that are needing access to cannabis, medical cannabis. And so somebody overhearing your conversation sometimes is what it takes.
And even when we talk about, like, my mom said that, I find it kind of funny. She said how when the delegate had approached her, that she was like, oh, I don't think you can actually help me. Like, I contextualize that in the frame of, this is during a time when I was, undergoing all these surgeries and being given all these medications. We're always being told this is gonna help you, this is gonna help you, and we're not being given the help that we're being told we're going to be given. Like, eventually we kind of had to take it into our own hands, and like we had to do all this organizing, and we had to do, we built a community, I think, around this. And honestly, it's really beautiful. It's like a really powerful thing to see still going after all these years. We did it back in 2019, 2020, and here we are in 2024, still able to sit down and talk about what it's doing now. I think that's incredible. And I think it really goes to show that when you build a community, when you organize, change is going to happen. Change has to start here among the people. So that's thing number one.
Totally agree with you. And I think that working in the medical cannabis space in general, it takes a community to make change, because we're approaching something that is it's been received as something that's terrible and horrible. And we are both all sitting here with an experience knowing that that's not true. And just seeing you thriving and living and going to college has to be such a testament for the amount of work that your parents put in, because when you have a sick child and you're fighting for them to have life, there's nothing more concerning than that. And that is what we have to be focusing on, and making sure that we have the education and the access. And it starts from when you're a kid. That understanding that these medications can really help, medical cannabis can really help with your health. We always will give our kids pharmaceuticals and don't think about the complications that occur without asking some of the questions. And right now we can see what cannabis has done for you and given you a life that you probably thought you would never have. So we're very, very honored that has happened, and very thankful that you have the parents that you have that have fought so hard to make it happen for you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Tricia, for, touching on, the frustrations. As a parent, I can't even imagine what you were going through. So I do, thank you for touching on that.
Thank you.
So I would think that might have been one of the most complex challenges that you had, but that's going to be my next question. What were some of the most complex challenges that you faced, Tricia, as a parent, and then you, Connor, faced as a minor trying to go to school and get educated? We'll start with Tricia on this one.
So honestly, I feel like the biggest concern for me when Connor started the cannabis, I mean, you have a very sick child, first of all, that we're dealing with. And during that time, I mean, it was just a few years ago, we've come a long way, but during that time, people were calling, anybody who used cannabis, well, not anybody, but like, most people didn't understand that there was real medical purposes. And so they were assuming that kids just want to get high, that they're potheads, that they're going to be stupid. I mean, obviously you can tell Connor, speak with them. I mean, super intelligent, but anyway. But I think, so it was the stigma of that, but the main thing that was really a real reality was I was terrified that I was going to get in trouble legally for giving a chronically ill child cannabis, even though, we went through the proper channels. He got his, he was a, legal medical cannabis patient, everything, we did everything right. I was terrified. I mean, I was even terrified to drive with the medicine in our car. I mean, I was just everything. It was just, I was afraid because we were taught, cannabis is bad and, marijuana, it's just a horrible thing. And like, it's just like, that was my thoughts about it too. So I was still trying to actually get myself to think differently as well. So it was really just, I was afraid. And so we didn't even tell the doctor, his actual doctors, not the doctor, obviously he had a different doctor that certified him, his actual doctors at Hopkins and Children's, where he was going. We didn't tell anybody that he was started cannabis at first, because I was afraid that I would get in trouble. We had asked them, is there any other medication that could help Connor? One thing Connor left out is he also has an ileostomy, so he only has half of his bowels. He was on a feeding tube. The feeding tube was starting to fail. And we were just like, come on, there's got to be like a pill. Like there's got to be a magic pill. Like I took him everywhere. Like I felt like I was on this mission to find the answer. Like we took him to Boston Children's, and that's where he actually got his diagnosis. We took him to Ohio, to Children's in Ohio. I mean, we were looking for the magic pill, and I just couldn't find there. None of those doctors told us about cannabis. And I wonder why they, I don't know. I mean, I just wonder why, because if you're in that situation, somebody could have said something. I just feel like somebody should have told us, and so I was afraid of the doctors is really it was. So we kept it quiet for like a month, right, Connor? It was about a month. And then,
yeah, about a month.
And then Connor started getting better and better, literally started getting better, like, first 20 minutes. The nausea went away, the pain went away. So it was almost instantaneously. And then he started just getting better. He started looking healthier. He started coming to color because he was getting nutrients in his body, food. And like, he just looked like he was getting better and growing like a plant, And so after about a month went by, then the doctor was like, wow, Connor, you look great. Like, and I think they were like wondering what they did. And, like, we didn't do anything different. What's going on? And they're like, okay, we're going to tell you now. Because I felt like if he was doing better, that they would accept it. And they did. That was the plan. And that's how it worked out. And when they saw, they were like, don't stop. Then they said, don't stop doing what you're doing. And they supported it. They weren't allowed to put it on paper, but they supported it. So that was my biggest obstacle, was just being afraid of what everybody was going to think, including the doctors, and me going to jail. I was worried somebody was going to kick the door down and take my kid,
That's a very honest concern. And it's still something that a lot of parents struggle with today. To answer your questions, why doctors weren't giving you information or telling you about it, they're not taught about cannabis in medical schools. So they don't know about it. So they're kind of behind us, the ones of us that are learning about it and are taking the education. It's our role to educate them, but sharing with them is always hard. And I got the same response that you did. Oh, just keep doing what you're doing. It's working. But they don't want to know about it. They don't want to learn about it. And that's really the part that we're trying to bring forward and educate. And that's what you're trying to do. That's why we hear and have these conversations. Being 13, 14 years old in school, trying to fight for your life, trying to fight for access to your medicine, were there any, can you pinpoint any complex challenges that you had beyond that?
Everything you just said there was kind of a very complex challenge. Like, you know, being a young man, like it's probably the most vulnerable time of your life, you know, that at that stage. And I had a lot of weight on me, you know, trying to go to school and maintain relationships with people and get myself to be healthy enough and to be able to actually be there. There was a lot of personal challenges in that time, and a lot of stuff that definitely still sticks with me today as a result of that. But I mean, when you talk about, you know, when you start to talk about the actual like the legislation and getting to work and all that, I mean, it's roadblocks every step of the way. When we were actually fighting for access in schools, there was a lot of issues when it came to would federal funding be pooled if this is on our properties. Are we, you know, the school nurse had an issue with, is my nursing license going to be revoked? Like there was all kinds of issues that were had from different individuals at the school level, different individuals at the actual health system level. And then a lot of concerns from the legislators who also, you know, as we just discussed, many doctors don't have a lot of this information. So a lot of your legislators definitely aren't either. And there's a lot of overlap in I feel like misinformation that people kind of get about the idea of cannabis and what it does to you. And I feel like, you know, when you're a young man and you're trying to manage all this stuff, I feel like the challenges are kind of endless. It was definitely a very defining time in my life trying to figure that out.
I can only imagine. I can't imagine having to go through that as a parent and then having to go through it with your child and him trying to maneuver everything that he's going through. So my question is, did you find that the school, with all those questions that they had around this, were they looking to get educated, or they just wanted the answers? They didn't really want to understand medical cannabis and the impact that it had? Were there any other students within your school that were using medical cannabis as well that were able to step forward?
So that's actually a bunch of really interesting questions. For one, I can say I don't think at the time anybody was using cannabis medicinally in my school. Yeah, I think it's very so-so. I think that there were some people along the way who were more interested in actually learning about cannabis medicinally as opposed to everything else going on, and just kind of wanting to get the answers. I think when it came to the school level, the administrators definitely like wanted to get me back on track. You know, it was their job to do so. But I think when we're talking to the legislators, to them, it's really it has to be by the book. It has to be very by the book. So because, you know, cannabis at the time was medically allowed here in Maryland, but, you know, federally completely on a different schedule. And public schools are federally funded. They're, you know, they get funds from the state, get funds from the government. And there was just that massive concern about that funding being pulled, which was like all we were hearing about from legislators. So it really depended on the level that you were talking to. I think there was a lot of genuine concern about getting this issue dealt with, but I'm not certain if there was much interest in really learning about what cannabis was going to be doing for people.
So have you seen that that's changed any through this whole process now? Do you feel like they're more educated at the public school level, or is that still something that needs to be addressed?
I would think that people are in general much more interested about learning about cannabis and medical cannabis for all the reasons people want to learn about it, both recreationally and medically, especially here in Maryland. You know, we just legalized it recreationally 2 years ago. I think there is in general an interest in learning about it, but I think it's not as easy as a question to answer as one would like it to be.
I agree with you, and I so wish it was taught in school. I think it should be taught in every biology class that you're even born with an endocannabinoid system.
Absolutely, that's something that a lot of people. I tell a lot of my friends about that, and they're absolutely blown away by that.
Yeah, it's still something even doctors aren't aware of it. So I mean, it is something that needs to be brought to the table, and we need to understand that we are all born with this system, and it plays a critical role in our health and keeping it balanced and in harmony. And that's, you know, one of the things you've been able to find through your medication is that it's put you back into some form of balance and harmony that you didn't have, no matter how many pharmaceuticals you tried.
I do have a question for you, Connor. And I know that, you were talking about people wanting to be educated. But I'm just wondering about your friends. How did they react when they found out that you were using medical cannabis? Did you have to debunk any stigmas? Did you have to educate them? Tell me just a little bit about that.
Well, being like the age that I was, 13, 14, using it medicinally, like, of course, I was kind of hit with like a lot of jokes and stuff from my peers. So that was something I kind of had to navigate. And I had a lot of very meaningful conversations with the people around me. So like all my friends back then, like they kind of used to rag on me a little bit here and there. But like as the time's gone on, we're all grown men. So people have kind of had their own experiences and they know what they think is good and what they think is not good. But in general, I honestly think that my experience has kind of brought a lot of people around me in my life to see it as a very positive thing. Where I think there was like definitely a lot of like that stigma, like it's the devil's lettuce, the kind of thing. Like when I was younger, like I think people now see it as something that can be used for healing, something that can actually be used as like a force of good if it's used in such a way. So yeah, like short answer to that is I definitely had some people around me, like when I was younger, making jokes and stuff. But as time's gone on, people have seen what it's done for me, and I don't think people have any jokes to make anymore.
I think it's really important to comment here that, we're all sitting here and very healthy. Me, you, and Angel, we all use cannabis for medical conditions. And they have not seen us go through the transition of what we used to be to where we are now. So now they just see a healthy person or a healthier person sitting here and functioning and working well in life. So I think that's a really good point to bring out because we were not in those spaces when we started this, and the battle is really intense, and it's really hard to define that and make that in a statement and share exactly what that experience was. So I can only imagine what it is for a 13, 14-year-old minor to have to go through that and navigate all the peer pressures that you do. So what you've done is amazing, and what you are still doing is even amazing. So we just are so thankful that you're here and that you get to share this story.
Grateful to be on here with you guys. Thank you.
Just if you could share, what were some of the unexpected breakthroughs that you never thought that would happen, or you never even had a thought to think about them?
The thing that immediately popped into my head is honestly like, and I know it's a very basic thing to just kind of keep coming back to, but it is the law that we had to get done because like once you're given a medicine that you're told is a medicine, like you kind of think that you're going to be good to treat it like a medicine. And we learned that my school did not want to treat my medication like medication. So I guess unexpected breakthrough was that we kind of had to get involved with the community. We had to build a community. We had to, I think, build something around it and get some movement going in order to make change happen. And I think people have seen that, and I think people have been inspired by that. And I'm very grateful that the people can be.
And could you or Tricia explain a little bit about how you built that community? What did it take for you to get that? I mean, it's more than just a phone call or knocking on a door. It's a very big, long process to build that community. Could you share a little bit about that?
So basically, I mean, I'm kind of active on social media, and I just, because we didn't really know what was wrong with Connor in the beginning, we didn't, know, the doctors didn't even know what was wrong, why he couldn't eat, and just why he was having the blockages and obstructions. So nobody knew why it was repetitive and why it was getting worse. And like, so I was just sharing our story on social media, even from those days, from when he was very sick, as people were coming out, like commenting, like, hey, have you ever tried cannabis? Try cannabis, try cannabis, So I was like building a community, not even realizing it. People would friend request me, and then they'd be like, hey, you need to try cannabis. Like, or they would write me, hey, you need to try cannabis. So as I finally did try that, then people, I told you so, that kind of thing. And then those people were like, hey, we want to help. Hey, oh, I have this problem too. Oh my gosh, we want to, hey, we want to back you. We want to support you. We want to help Connor. And it was kind of like that. I mean, it was just truly the community. I don't think people want to see a kid fight alone. That was kind of how we brought the community together. As far as actually organizing, like truly organizing, that was a whole nother thing. And that was like a job. It was like I'm working my regular job. I'm taking care of Connor and trying to organize. I had books, pages and pages, and every single legislator, every single senator, every delegate, everybody, in our town, because we have like a mayor here and everything. Like, I just sent tons of emails to everybody and made appointments, kept them. I tried to keep, like, there's a couple different buildings, and I would try to, like, organize all that and make sure that, like, we would have 15 minutes, for each meeting that we would have. And so there was a lot of organizing that I did, but it was just, I'm not like a professional. I just did it, and the community, our friends that had come along to help with us and fight this fight with us. So we would, spread out, and that would be like, okay, you three go that way, us three will go this way. We'll meet you over here, and they would do an appointment, and then we would do an appointment. And so it was a lot of work, and it was a very big machine that we kind of had rolling really well, and Connor was in the center of all of it. And I mean, as you can see, he's well spoken and he's very passionate about this work, and so they listened. I mean, I think it was his age, and because he's not what the stigma says you are, and I just hate even saying the pothead and things like that. Like, I think that, dumb or stupid, all these things that people think people are that use cannabis. Connor was not that. And so it was they listened, and so the community just kind of came together, and that's just how we built it. I mean, and it's not really ours, it's everyone's community.
I was just going to add to that I think like, it's not, I don't like to see myself at the center of it. Like, I know that, like, my name is on, it's the name of the foundation, but I don't like to see myself at the center of it, because, like, when we go into these rooms and we talk to these legislators, it's not just me. It's sure, I might open it up, or I might, like, give my part of the story, but we'll go into these rooms with doctors and nurses and veterans and recovering addicts and all kinds of people from all different walks of life who have to use this for all kinds of different reasons. It's not just kids with gastrointestinal dysmotility. It's not just people with epilepsy. It's not just people coming back from war dealing with PTSD. People will use it for any reason. It has to, if it's your medication and you have to use it, let's get in a room, let's organize, let's talk about what our issues are, let's find some common ground, and let's go get something done. Like, that's the way that I see it. That's the way that organization has always happened. And that's just kind of the way that it played out for us in this particular instance. And I'm very happy that I could be a part of it.
By sharing your story, though, is what brings the community along. When they get to see and hear your story and understand. So by you going on to social media and sharing this story, Tricia, you open the door to start showing to people that we can talk about this and have this conversation. Because when we don't share these stories, people don't hear this and don't understand what we can learn from them. And there's so much that can be taken from this. And there may be somebody out there right now with a child that is struggling with the same thing and would like to see the same results for their child. So, it's so important that these stories are shared. So can you share a little bit about the story behind the foundation and how it got started? Because I would think that there was some creative thinking in getting this foundation put together so that you could actually make a bigger impact than what just for Connor.
So Connor was asked to speak a lot at different events. He spoke at the Cannabis Science Conference a couple times. So as we were attending these events and just really, learning more about medical cannabis ourselves, we realized that one of the things is that, like, because the doctors don't have enough research or information, that's another reason, in addition to being federally illegal, but they just don't have enough information to make suggestions on cannabis. They just didn't at that time. Still probably don't have a lot of information, but so I was like, we need to somehow do some research, Connor. Like, we need to do something. We got to keep going forward. Like, and he's like, yeah, we need we should do research. So
I think back then I also used to like a big talking point in all my speeches was like there's not enough research being done, and that was a big thing I used to say all the time. So I feel like that's kind of where some of it came from as well.
yeah, and so we were advocates. So I was like, well, we can try to do some research, which I feel like it's going to be impossible. I just felt like it was impossible. I'm like, I mean, I did some college. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. Connor was still a kid, so but we were advocating. But I'm like, but I also want to make sure that we're creating awareness and trying to educate the public. So those were like basically our goals. They're still always our goals. And along the way, we met some nurses and some nurse practitioners. And they were like, hey, we want to help. We want to get into some research too. And basically, I mean, we researched how to get into research, and lots of calls with researchers, people that have already done research. And we were like, what are we going to do first? And Connor's number one thing that he thought would help everyone, that was important to him, was PTSD. And so that became our first mission, and that is what we're working on now, is doing medical research with PTSD and cannabis use. I'll tell you, it's a lot harder than what I had imagined. I think now I understand why there's not a lot of research. But we're doing it, and it might take a little longer than what we're expecting. We were hoping to get it done in a year. It might get pushed off a little longer, but that's what we're doing. And we also have like we're not doing as much right now because we're so into the research, and that's taking a lot of time. We meet weekly on that. But we also do have some events, seminars, where the nurses and the nurse practitioners will come out and speak to the public and teach about cannabis. We call that Cannabis Conversations. So we have that, and that's basically our education side of it.
PTSD impacts a huge amount of our population, and understanding how to treat it and address it is really important. And we can see the benefits of people using it every day. Yeah. From stories that we hear. So thank you for taking that on and working to do that. So how can people help you?
Well, you can go on to our website, the Connor Sheffield Foundation.com. You could sign up to be a participant in our study. That would be great. We need that. If you want to help out even more, you can just send me an email at Connor Sheffield Foundation @gmail.com, and we could discuss further how you would like to help. We always need volunteers. We would love that.
All right, and we'll put all that information in the links below and in the write-up so that anybody can get access to you. So thank you. So at the present moment, what challenges are you having and encountering in educating and advocating for medical cannabis, and how are you addressing them?
I mean, there are a lot of things that need to be done still, but it's I don't know, some of it is timing. Like for example, Connor's on a college campus, and I mean, everywhere we turn, you see signs that say no cannabis use, and so you're like, wow, like come this far and here we go, but so he can't stay on campus because of that reason. So I mean, there's a lot of things that you don't really notice until you come up to it. But we're gonna wait until after Connor's in college, out of college, to probably address that, because we don't want to get him in trouble or anything. I'm
not trying to put another target on my back.
Right. He has to have his education, so we're just playing by their rules right now, and that's what we're doing.
But that's also disheartening that you fought so hard to have access in public schools, and now here you are in college, and you still see that there's a barrier.
Tell me about it.
And
I know.
Your medicine is your medicine. I haven't seen anybody denied or, in trouble at school for taking chemotherapy or taking medications for pain or for anxiety, whatever it may be. And so I think it's really sad that we're still at that place, and we need the colleges to come along and understand the value of this. Do you know if your university has an education program for cannabis training at all for their, in any form, shape?
It's not, is it University of Maryland that has
Yes.
the class for, okay, so I think we do have a class related to cannabis. Mom, do you know, what do you know about that?
So it's some sort of, you can get a master's degree in cannabis pharmaceuticals or something like that. I don't know the exact term, but a couple of the ladies that are a part of our foundation actually got their master's degree from that program. So they do, and Connor actually was a part of the program because they interviewed him and they did a study, like a research paper on Connor's interview. So he was a part of the education of that. So like they know who he is and stuff. But that is just something totally different than educating somebody that, just like being a part of the education process for the professors and stuff that, that no, there's nothing like that. And I really was, I was trying to get Connor to like, hey, why don't we put out a table? He's like, Mom, no way. I can't have the cannabis stuff. No way.
Can't be on campus.
So I mean, as much as we want to, it starts that fear up again because what could happen, and we have to pay a lot of money now for him to live off campus, and he literally lives one street off campus because he's close enough to walk to his classes, but he has to be not on campus. So it's an expense that we weren't expecting, but we need him to have his education.
Well, and that's the thing people don't understand, that once you start, if you're treating a medical condition, it doesn't cure it generally.
Right.
And so you can't just stop it. It's not like you just take it for a while and then you stop. And it's not like you can just say, well, I'll wait for 8 hours before I take it again, depending on, wherever I'm at. These are the things that we need to address and that we need to advocate for, is that that's one of the beauties of using medical cannabis, is that you get to decide when you medicate, and understanding your body and your system and when you do need to medicate. And there shouldn't be barriers that are preventing you from doing that.
Absolutely.
So I know that your primary goal with the foundation is to make sure that every kid has access and every person has access to cannabis as medicine, and do research. But can you just explain a little bit about your mission and what it stands for?
So, primary goals and missions for our foundation, it's pretty laid out. I would like there to be safe access for medical cannabis for everybody, adult, child, as long as they are supposed to be taking their medical cannabis. I believe that there should be safe access. I think that it's something that we don't have the right to right now, like how some people might have the right to be taking certain medications elsewhere. Like, my mother just mentioned that I'm having issues being on campus here because of that. So safe access is number one, and then number two is research and just making sure that people know more about this plant. We know so much about all these pharmaceuticals. We can break down all the chemical things. We can break down like Adderall and everything else like very well. We know everything what's in it, but I feel like objectively we don't really know a lot about cannabis and the way that it interacts with our bodies and the way that it interacts with our endocannabinoid systems. And I just feel like we can do more with it medically if we know more about it. It's not just about knowing more about it. It's knowing what we can do with it and how it's not being used right now and what parts of it maybe have not been tapped into quite yet. It's a plant with hundreds and hundreds of different parts of it that we just don't really know a lot about. And I think that's very important, is being able to understand the plant as medicine and being able to have safe access to it for everybody across the board.
What he said.
No, and you're right on. And I think the other piece that gets left out a lot when we talk about research is that everybody's endocannabinoid system is unique to them. So how and what works for you, Connor, may not necessarily
Absolutely.
work specifically for the next person that has the same medical condition that you do. And so we really have to look at research in a little different lens, I think, when we're talking about this. And that's why I like what you're doing, because you're using lived experiences in your research to understand how this is helping with PTSD. What one person might experience, the other person may not. And so it's really important to understand which cannabinoids are working, which terpenes are working, and what consumption methods are being successful, and then trying to dive into that data and understand how that is all working, and then be able to draw in and understand, okay, these are the similarities.
It's, you know, it's like cannabis can be used as a medication, and like we don't know enough about how it can be used as a medication, so we're not 100% able to always apply it correctly. And it's kind of like if you have 15 different types of anxiety medications and you keep trying them and they keep being wrong. It's like you just have to know what's right for you, and you have to know how much is right for you. It's a medicine, and we have to treat it as a medicine, so we have to research it like a medicine. That's the way that I see it, you know?
Exactly.
And you're just working locally within your community right now. You're not working externally outside of that, correct?
Correct.
We want to see it expand. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
I would be so happy to see this get so much bigger. You really have no idea. I would love to be able to help out as many people as I can. It's a dream of mine.
Well, I think that this needs to be available in every state. I think that every state needs to have some kind of law that protects a minor and the parents, so that they can make sure that their child is getting the correct medication to improve their quality of life. We want to see every child expand and grow and go on to be the successful person that they have the dreams to have. And when we don't give them this access, they don't have that ability. As soon as I heard about this foundation through OTHA, I was like, I need to meet you, and we need to figure out how to move this beyond just your state, because this is such a critical conversation that needs to be had. So if someone is in another state and would like to help pitch in, learn from you, is that something that you're open to?
Yes.
Yeah,
We are.
yes, of course, absolutely.
We can help getting the law started. We can help them, obviously, yes. We can tell them how we did it. We can just give them the layout of how we did it. It's a lot of work, but it can be done.
Well, the good thing is you do have you have a plan. You've done it, so you can share that. That's one of the things that I find that happens in this space in medical cannabis, is that we're reinventing. Everybody's off doing something on their own and reinventing whatever needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to have that experience behind you and somebody supporting you, that this is what I've done and it was successful. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that you did this within a year is truly incredible, because that doesn't happen in general.
Look, I'm studying politics at school. Like, this is what my whole thing has been. So, like, honestly, being down this path in my life, going through what I've been through, like it's what put me on the path of studying politics. I have an AA degree in political science, so I see, you know, all this stuff that's happened, and I'm very, for one, grateful to be a part of it. For two, grateful to see how much change has happened in so little time, because like that's a thing that doesn't happen with anything across it just doesn't happen. So there's so many things that I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours and tell you how grateful I am to be doing this, and how much I know it is not normal for change like this to happen. But I would rather just say, please organize, get involved with your own communities, and make change where you are, because that is the only way that these kinds of things will continue to happen. This did not happen overnight. Even though it might look like it did not happen overnight. You need to organize. You need to talk to people around you.
And advocating is not easy, and it's not something that you just automatically know how to do. Yeah. And like you said earlier, you know, you had a job, you had a sick child, you were trying to do all this, but then in the process, you're trying to learn how to advocate. Did you take any training, or did you just learn all on your own and go for it?
So I had no idea what I was doing. No, I didn't have any training. What I did was we just said we knew what we needed done, and we made all these appointments. I knew that the Connor just needed to get in front of. I just knew that Connor needed to tell his story to every single person that would listen, and that because they were going to be the ones voting for this bill, and Connor had to sit with and educate. That's what we did. We more so educated, and advocating was just a thing that came with it. But we were educating each person. It was over 200 legislators that we sat with. He just told a story, and they listened, and it was amazing. Once they heard, I think he changed everybody's minds, and I think that he really evolved medical cannabis here. I think a lot of people started using cannabis as medicine here in Maryland because of Connor. And it was just telling a story, and that was it. And just fighting for being able to be normal. He just wanted to be normal. That's all, you know?
And I think that you had to educate yourself a lot, Connor, if I'm not mistaken, just on medical cannabis and what it was doing for you and understanding it at such a young age. Would I be correct in that?
Absolutely. I mean, like if you want, it's hard for me to kind of look back at that time. But in trying to put myself back in that mindset, like I didn't really know anything about cannabis other than like, the couple of things in schools that like, our teachers would give us, like the anti-drug PSAs, that was, here's your brain on drugs, like all that kind of stuff. Like we were being given that, so I really didn't know anything. And honestly, I was very nervous to go down this journey. But it, like, as I mentioned way back when we first started talking, it was my last solution. It was the only thing that I had left. I really couldn't say no if I wanted to live, and more than anything, I want to live. So, but yeah, I had to do a lot of education. I had to do a lot of searching in myself, and definitely had to hear a lot from other people. Had to hear other people's stories, and I think I had to see what it would do for me, and I see now, and I saw back when I had first started.
Let me ask you this, being a nonprofit and working in this space of teaching about medical cannabis and trying to advocate for it, have you had difficulties getting access to services that you need to run a nonprofit?
No, I was worried that maybe we wouldn't be able to get a bank account, just things like that. So I am careful about what I say on the website, or was when we first started this. Like I say plant medicine instead of cannabis, but I might have changed those verbiages as things went on. Like but even like our Facebook, like our foundation page, we can't have anybody under 21 on there. Just little things like that. But try to apply for any grants or anything, because honestly, well, I have tried. I've looked, and no, they're not doing anything. There's nothing for us really. So that's why we have to, or if there is, I just don't, I'm not aware of it. So we're literally raising, dollars at a time, trying to pay for this research. And everybody that is a part of Connor Sheffield Foundation are volunteers, and they are amazing people. They're donating all their time for free. And, that's a lot to ask for, from nurses, researchers, Otha, who, he, owns the Tetragram app. I mean, he gives us his time for free. Like, he's allowing us to use his app for free through this research, so everybody's volunteering, so that's wonderful, part of the community. But yeah, we're just doing this all, we're just doing this from grassroots, like we would sell brownies, like not those kind of brownies, but we would sell brownies, we would have a big sale if we had to, we would,
Looking ahead, what are the foundation's future plans? But some of the upcoming initiatives and things that you're doing, what can we expect, and how can we get involved and support that?
So we are going in the spring. We're gonna have another bingo. We do those when we do the Canna bingos. They sell out. It's an amazing event that we have, and they sell out. We always sell out every time. We get about 200 people there. If we had a bigger building, we could have probably sell more tickets. So that's how we raise our money. But as far as the actual initiatives, like, it's going to be the research, and it's taking everything. I mean, right now we're still in the research phase. We are still in the recruiting phase of our research, and we are starting to gather data as well. So we're kind of overlapping that. And we're going to just keep working through this. This is going to be a lot of work right now. And I mean, eventually, after we get through this, which could be at least another year, we would like to probably try to do another research project And, I'm not sure what that would be, what that looks like. I would have to talk to the board members and see what everybody would like to tackle next. But there's so many different important things that need to be researched with cannabis.
So is there any one question I did not ask you today that you wish I'd ask, or you think that our listeners and readers need to know about?
I think everything was mostly covered. I think that was great.
I don't have any follow-up questions, but I just want to say that I do commend you for all of this work that you guys have put into this. I mean, I'm blown away, really, I am. And, I know that at first, Tricia, you said that you were not an expert. And I don't think that anybody plans for this kind of thing to happen, any of these issues to arise. And, you just so gracefully and just took it on. And, I think that this is really important. I think that it's important for it to be in every single state. And, I hope that we can help with that at some point.
Yeah.
Or some way.
Thank you. I did what any mom would do. So, and that is anything for your child, and so you just have to fight, because like fight for like basically the basic things like life, education. I mean, and it sucks that you had to fight for those things, but I mean, those are things that any mom would do. So yeah, I'm not special. Definitely not, but I had an amazing team behind us. So we had a lot of support, and I'm grateful for all that,
Well, I'm grateful that somebody suggested to you or asked you, have you heard about cannabis? Just that approach and somebody saying that to you is what made the difference.
It took a long time. It was about 6 months of a lot of people just saying, because I was actually insulted that people would ask. I was mad. I was like, God, what are you talking about? I have a sick kid. Like, you can't do that, And then I finally was like, we had nothing else. So yeah, it took a little while, but I was one of those people, and now I'm different.
I think that's how a lot of people find themselves here and learning about medical cannabis, is when there is no other options. That's when you become desperate and you say, well, what have I got to lose? I really don't have anything to lose, so I need to move forward and try this. And surprisingly enough, it's made amazing improvements in quality of life and allowed a lot of people to live a life they never thought they would see again, or have. So I think that's really important. I really do appreciate you taking the time today and coming in and speaking with us and sharing this story. We would love to do this again and do an update at a later time. And I cannot wait for people to hear your story. I find it always interesting. How many people do I meet on a regular basis that have been doing this for years, and I didn't meet them until just recently? That's what this space is like. There's so many people working in this space that we haven't met yet. And these conversations are why it's so important that we get this word out. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
We so appreciate you dropping in. Your time and support are invaluable as we strive to educate and advocate for the transformative potential of medical cannabis. Remember, you have only one health and one life, and no one lives them but you. Let's continue this journey together. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest conversations. Your comments and engagement fuel the dialogue we need to create change. Until next time, stay empowered and keep exploring the wonders of your endocannabinoid system.